Well, speaking of that, I wanted to ask about the college football playoff because that's such a big discussion here. And I'll start with this. How bad do the SEC coaches look for not wanting to play 9 games a year?
I don't know if they look that bad because I do think that people with a lot of common sense look at the league and look at the difficulty and they say, would you want to do that? And then you see some teams, I mean, you can't really argue it, appeared as though they got a benefit of a lighter schedule last year and got in. Now, does that necessarily mean that South Carolina or Alabama or Ole Miss should have been in ahead of them? No, not necessarily. I mean, look at what Notre Dame did. They beat Georgia. You know, I mean, and there were some people that said, well, you lost to Northern Illinois, you shouldn't be in. They beat the SEC champs. So, you know, the reason that you don't automatically go to it is because of what's coming with the strength of schedule metrics and how that's going to be weighed in the decision making. And I think that's your last real negotiating ploy. That's the last thing you have at the table to be. I mean, that's your last chip to be able to push in and say, this is going to get us more revenue. And then after that, what's next? What's your big card next where you say, we want more revenue here? Change this so we can make sure we get a bigger check. You going to go to 10? I mean, no, there's nothing left. So
I think it's going to be interesting to see what model they go to. So at this point, I know the SEC coaches are in favor of the 5-11.
Also, like when the other conferences did that, did they vote on that because the coaches wanted it, or did they know that would help their media rights? That's what I'd be interested to see. Because I don't remember those conversations, but I don't remember a ton of coaches pounding the table saying, by God, get us 9 conference games. Think about it. I mean, you're eliminating yourself. So if you know the strength of schedule is going to be weighed more heavily, and that's where we're at a real crossroads right now, because I don't think I know that there are metrics that are going to be involved now moving ahead. But also, I mean, Indiana just did it, yesterday, the day before? Like, these teams are canceling series to lighten the load. Greg Sankey told us on the desk yesterday, essentially, that programs are lightening the load to have a better shot to get into these playoffs because they know there's more teams that are going to get in. I think if it were me scheduling right now and I wasn't Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, it would be Mercer, Central Arkansas, Samford. I'll take my chance with an 11-1 crummy schedule versus a 9-3 really good schedule.
Well,
because our brains are still wired to, that's a one-loss football team. That's an undefeated football team. Like, we got people where I do radio that are like, Alabama freaking 9-3. It's like, y'all see Georgia's record? They finished 10-3, by the way. That's 1 game difference. I mean, come on. So, we got to get this whole 2-loss, 3-loss thing out of our brains. That's going to take a long time, though, because us college football fans that are in our 30s, in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, our brain tells us undefeated, 1 loss is the only way to be good. That's it.
I disagree with that a little, but that's just because I admit I'm an unabashed SEC homer, and I banged the drum really loud last year for Alabama and Ole Miss over Indiana, and I will tell you now that I thought Ole Miss's 9-3 was way more impressive than Indiana's 10-1.
Yeah, the loss to Kentucky was ugly. I mean, you couldn't really argue that. The win against Georgia was huge. The win at South Carolina was good. I don't think that was a dominant win like some people gave them credit for. If you go back and look at it, I mean, it was a player who fell down in coverage, and it was a turnover that led to a touchdown. Like, I didn't think that was just Ole Miss kicked the crap out of them for 4 quarters. But South Carolina was a good team, so they didn't need to do that really. And I can look at those teams and say, yeah, I think those are good football teams. I do think, though, you counter that with you give teams credit for winning games. Sometimes, no matter who they're against, they went out and found ways to win games. Like the first example that comes to mind is 2010 Auburn. Mississippi State, dogfight. Clemson, dogfight. South Carolina, dogfight. And then, I mean, were there many teams that you'd put in their category in November? No. I go back to 92 Alabama National Championship team. I mean, Chris Donnelly had to intercept the ball at Legion Field for a touchdown, and I think they beat La Tech like 13-7. Well, then they just beat the hell out of Miami in the Sugar Bowl that won a national championship game, and they were dominant against this Miami offense with Gino Torretta and Lamar that was like scoring touchdowns left and right, and Next thing you know, they look like the best team in the country. So I think certain games at certain point times in the season shouldn't also tell you the story about that team for the entire season.
When you look at the SEC this year, it feels a lot like the usual suspects. Georgia, Texas, everybody expects them to do good. Alabama, I think a little bit of a question mark, but most people feel like they're going to be back. Is there anyone right now you're looking at that could be a possible surprise?
I think the entire middle of the league is a surprise right now. I think if you wanted to take Texas, Georgia, Bama, some people are putting LSU there, and that's fine. Because one thing that's interesting about this media days is usually when we're trying to pick a champion, what's the one thing we point to? Quarterback. But everybody, Texas, Bama, Georgia. And LSU's kind of sitting over there like, we got our guy back, and he threw for 4,000 yards, whatever it was. So, but I have real questions about LSU. But those are the four teams. You can pick 1, 2, 3, all four, whatever. I think after that is what is interesting in the league this year. Because you've got Auburn, Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida, A&M, all that I think I could convince you could win 9 or 10, and I can convince you they'll win 6 or 7. Because they have real question marks. But it's the ceilings that I think are different for a lot of those teams. I think Arkansas is not a complete mystery, but there's a lot of mystery to that team right now. Like I said, Bobby Petrino, Taylor Green, they're going to move the ball. Depth is going to be a real concern in a lot of places, but I could say that for, honestly, all 16 teams in this league. So I think the only teams that people might not have real confidence in being dangerous would probably be Kentucky and Mississippi State, and I can even give you reasons I think those two are going to surprise some people. I guess the real question for me is you take that middle of the pack, who's going backwards? Vanderbilt's not going backwards. And there's a lot of people that I've said that this week, and they're like, oh, come on, it's Vanderbilt. They got the whole defense back. They upgraded their offensive line. Cedric Alexander's the most underrated running back in the league. They have a deep threat at wide receiver, and they have the biggest mismatch tight end in the country. And a dude at quarterback that does not give a rip about anything or anyone anytime. They're going to win some games. And everybody says they're not sneaking up on anybody. All right, well, I think people watched them on film before they played them last year. I mean, you saw what they were, and some people still couldn't stop it. So I think is it Florida? Is it A&M? Is it Auburn? Oklahoma is in that mix. And Oklahoma might have the highest ceiling of any of those next level of teams because they got some real star power with John Mateer, Deion Burks, the best interior D-line in the league, I think. So it's going to be fun, man. It really is.
All right, last thing, and I'll let you go after this, but I've got to know, top 5 football movies of all time.
Well, the program is number 1, and we can just shut the discussion down because I don't really care about anything else. And anybody who says the program is not number 1, I don't trust their opinions on anything else. So
somehow I knew that was going to be the answer. Cole, phenomenal.
The best part about the program is how accurate it is now compared to then.
Okay, so
not the steroid stuff, but like everything they were doing that we laughed at is like real now.
I was going to ask, okay, so when you played at Auburn and you saw the program.
I was in high school when it came out, but yeah.
So how close was it to when you played at Auburn if you're saying it's even more accurate now than what it was when you played?
I mean, like some of the handshakes were real. You heard about that kind of stuff and saw that kind of stuff. I think like some of the coach family relationship stuff, not at Auburn, but at other places, like that was real in college football. Some of the player treatment stuff was real in college football. Like the only thing that I didn't see or hear about at a lot of places was like the steroid stuff. And again, but like how the coach, I mean, he's like, guys, it's 35 pounds in one off season. All you got to do is hit the weight room a little bit. Like turning a blind eye to things, like that's the part you pay attention to. Not that, oh, this dude's roided up and nobody cares. It's how the coaches could convince themselves that things were okay, that they knew were wrong, but we just needed them on the field. So, like, we're going to let that slide. We're not going to worry about it. Or we're going to come up with a reason that that's okay. Like, that's still real today.
It's kind of that's scary when you think about it, that's the way that the sausage is made. And I don't know how many fans want to know it, but I've got a friend that played college football, and he pretty much tells me the same thing.
Yeah, guys getting hurt and then not being any use to the program anymore. I mean, that's real. Freshmen coming in. My favorite line in the movie is when Darnell Jefferson comes in an inside drill and he gets hit and he gets knocked down. I say this to my kids 3 or 4 times a week. And Coach walks up and he says, "Are you hurt or are you injured?" And he's like, "I don't understand, Coach." And he said, "Well, if you're hurt, you can still practice. If you're injured, you can't." He says, "Well, I guess I'm hurt." I'm like, there we go. So my kids get hurt in the backyard all the time, and the first thing I say to them, "You hurt or you injured?" My little 5-year-old, "I guess I hurt." And we'll keep playing. So like I said, it is still valid today.
Cole, continued success, and thank you for taking this time with us.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me.